Welcome to Carol and Gary's See America Tour. Hello again, everyone. On a cold, rainy January 22nd, Carol and I drove 24 miles south of Mims on Interstate 95 until we saw signs directing us east toward the Warbird Air Museum. Founded in 1977 by a group of aviation enthusiasts, veterans, and pilots, the Warbird Museum is a collection of over 50 historical airplanes from the beginning of aviation to the present day. One of the most prolific aircraft designs of the 20th century was the Douglas C-47, a militarized variant of the Douglas DC-3 airliner. Serving as the backbone for all air transportation during World War II, the C-47 remains one of the most iconic military transports in history. It has a maximum speed of 224 miles an hour, a service ceiling of 26,400 feet, and a range of 1,600 miles. With a crew of 4, which included a pilot, co-pilot, navigator, and radio operator, this plane, nicknamed Tico Bell, began its day at 4 o'clock in the morning on June 6, 1944, dropping 28 Army paratroopers into Normandy. This is the cockpit area of a C-47. Here is a picture of Tico Bell with members of the 82nd Airborne loading up. After the war, Tico Bell stayed in Europe and participated in the Berlin airlift. After the Berlin airlift, Tico Bell passed to the Norwegian Air Force and later the Danish Air Force before coming to the Air Museum in 1988. With thousands of troops on the ground after D-Day, commanders needed information about battlefield operations. The two-seater Stinson L5 Sentinel became a major player for the Americans during World War II by spotting for the artillery, photographing key areas, delivering vital communications and medicine. 3,896 planes were produced. The Cessna L4 Grasshopper was another two-seater airplane used primarily for observation and delivering communications during World War II. 5,703 of these planes were manufactured for military use. During World War II, an Army officer named Captain Charles Carpenter fitted 3 bazookas under each wing of his L4, which he named Rosie the Rocketeer, and attacked the enemy with a vengeance, earning the nickname Bazooka Charlie. He has been credited with knocking out a number of armored vehicles and infantry positions. This is a Douglas SBD Dauntless. SBD stands for Scout Bomber Douglas. It was the U.S. Navy's main carrier-based scout dive bomber from mid-1940 through mid-1944. The SBD's most important contribution to the American war effort came during the Battle of Midway in early June 1942. 4 squadrons of Navy SBD dive bombers attacked and sank or fatally damaged all 4 Japanese carriers present, disabling 3 of them in the span of just 6 minutes. The picture I took of the next plane didn't come out very well, but there's an interesting story behind it, so I borrowed a picture off the internet. This is the North American XP-82 twin Mustang. The Air Force needed the best escort fighter it could get its hands on to protect its fleet of bombers in Germany and the Pacific. They needed a plane with speed, deadly armament, and most importantly, range. Especially in the Pacific, aircraft were required to fly long distances between islands. Although other planes that were available had the range, its pilot would have an extremely taxing experience, so the Air Force came up with a new plan, having 2 pilots. North American, the plane's manufacturer, decided to create the XP-82 twin Mustang. It was essentially 2 modified P-51 Mustang fuselages in a twin boom layout. There were 2 cockpits that were occupied by 2 pilots who would share the task of flying and fighting. While one rested, the other would fly. It would be used to escort the long-range B-52 bombers. Unfortunately, the XP-82 was developed at the end of the propeller-driven fighter era and at the beginning of the jet age, so only 272 were ever built. Its role as a long-range fighter escort was eliminated by the atomic bombing of Japan and the sudden end of World War II. The next plane that we saw was an F86 Sabre, a transonic jet fighter aircraft. Transonic means that it could fly at the speed of sound. Produced by North American Aviation, the F86 Sabre is best known as America's first wing-swept fighter, which could counter the similarly winged Soviet MiG-15 in high-speed dogfights during the Korean War. The F-86 accounted for a 10-to-1 kill ratio over the MiG-15s. The last plane that we looked at inside the large hangar was the McDonnell Douglas F-4 Phantom II, introduced in 1959. This two-seater carrier-based fighter was developed for the U.S. Navy. Variations were later built for the U.S. Air Force to use for ground attacks and air-to-air combat. During a quick break in the rain, Carol and I went outside to see what was available on the apron. This is a twin-tailed B-25, a medium-range bomber used during World War II. It had a crew of 4 to 6 depending upon its mission. The plane carried 3,000 pounds of bombs internally in the bomb bay, with the capability of having more mounted underneath the wings. The B-25 Bomber gained fame in the daring April 1942 Doolittle raid. Lieutenant Colonel James Doolittle humiliated the Japanese military by penetrating some of the world's most formidable air defenses and dropping bombs a stone's throw away from the Emperor's palace. The Doolittle raid's B-25s were the only aircraft to bomb Tokyo until 1944. While still outside, we noticed the nose section of a Boeing B-52 and decided to investigate. An actual B-52 is 156 feet long with a wingspan of 185 feet. It is a long-range, subsonic, jet-powered strategic bomber. The bomber is capable of carrying 70,000 pounds of weapons and has a combat range of more than 8,800 miles without aerial refueling. The B-52 took its maiden flight in April 1952. Although built to carry nuclear weapons for Cold War-era deterrent missions, the B-52 has only dropped conventional munitions in combat. The B-52 has been in active service with the Air Force since 1955. As of June 2019, 58 were still in active service, with 18 in reserves and approximately 12 more in long-term storage. The nose section of the B-52 is a two-story arrangement with the pilot, co-pilot, and an electronic warfare officer sitting in the upper section. This is a view of the cockpit. The lower section contains the navigator and radar navigator. This is a view of their area. With light rain falling again, we were heading back into the hangar when we saw a Grumman F14 Tomcat sitting off to one side of the apron, so we had to go investigate before going back inside. The Grumman F14 Tomcat is a supersonic, twin-engine, two-seater fighter aircraft with variable sweep wings, developed for the U.S. Navy. The F-14 was the first American fighter incorporating the experience of air combat against MiGs during the Vietnam War. This plane was flown from December 1970 to September 2006. Back inside, we saw this Bell H13 Sioux helicopter. The Bell H13 is a single-rotor, single-engine light helicopter manufactured by Bell Helicopter. The H13 entered military service in late 1946 and operated for 3 decades. During the Korean War, it served a variety of roles, including reconnaissance and scouting, search and rescue, and medical evacuation. We also saw a Sikorsky H19 Chickasaw, which was a multi-purpose helicopter used by all branches of the military during the Korean War. The H-19 holds the distinction of being the U.S. Army's first true transport helicopter and as such played an important role in the initial formulation of the Army doctrine regarding air mobility and the battlefield employment of troop-carrying helicopters during the Korean War. It was also used for medical evacuation, tactical control, and frontline cargo support. We saw numerous other planes and support vehicles at the Warbird Air Museum, but this video is running long, so I'm going to pull the plug and get this video uploaded. If you like this video but have not yet subscribed, please do so to be notified of future videos, and as always, feel free to share with your friends. Thanks for watching.